Welcome to The Real Life Buyer. In this podcast, you will discover interviews with procurement and technical experts, business owners, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders. These experts will help you to develop and grow, accelerate your career, improve your business, save money, and buy smart. Now introducing The Real Life Buyer, Dave Barr.
Hello and welcome to The Real Life Buyer. Today, I'm exceedingly pleased to introduce you to Fredrik Axelsson from Söderköping in Sweden. In March 2021, Fredrik celebrated 25 years as a procurement professional, and during his career, he has had roles as an operational buyer, category manager, and procurement director in organizations including Ericsson, Saab, and Alstom, or GE. Fredrik has also developed a training program for buyers, which is successfully certifying them, details of which may be discovered at learnhowtosource.com. Today, Fredrik and I are going to discuss how to integrate learnings into one's day-to-day work in order that buyers may grow and flourish in their careers. So without further ado, I'm delighted to welcome Fredrik onto the podcast. Hello, Fredrik.
Oh, hello, Dave. Thank you for having me. And hello, everybody out there listening. Yeah.
Hello,
it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm really excited and grateful for the opportunity to join.
So we've got some big names you've mentioned there, just above the companies you work for.
Yeah.
And obviously they're large global companies that the most people will be quite familiar with. But could you walk us through your career in sourcing that now inspires you to help your career professionals develop and grow?
Yes, for sure. Yeah. I mean, if you look at my career, there is a couple of highlights looking back that I understand why I end up in a situation trying to train buyers. So my degree is from the University of Gothenburg. I got a business economics, so I'm pretty skilled in terms of knowing how cost and income influence a company and cash flow and all these things a buyer know. But really at that starting point, I knew I wanted to be a buyer, but in reality, I didn't know why and how really the job of a buyer was. So I moved to the east coast of Sweden. Those of you who are familiar with Sweden, you know that Stockholm is located on about 120 miles south of Stockholm. It's a place called Norrköping. And there I started at Ericsson. At that point in time, Ericsson was a company producing fixed lines networks. Not that much these days, I guess. It's more 5G systems. And I started as an operational buyer, as you mentioned, Dave, there. And really, at that point in time, I learned super much. But what if I would have a situation where I knew what buyer was? I would have, started my career in a much better way. But I learned Ericsson is a very good way to develop as an individual and in this case as a buyer. And moved on to be a category manager and started working with mobile phone manufacturing. Those days there were actually mobile phone manufacturing in Europe, not in Asia. So I was part of manufacturing the T28 and the R10. And for those of you who know your mobile phone history, it's the phone with the shark fin, really rugged. So that's, put in context, that's still my favorite phone of today. So, and then I moved on and got my first manager position as a procurement manager at a contract manufacturer called Solectron. And I learned also about being a manager. And I learned that what the heck, if you want to hire a buyer, where are they? If you put out an ad saying, I want a buyer with these kind of skills, there is no one out there who can meet the skills. So I also learned at that point in time, there were no place where you can train to be a buyer, at least not in the region I was. So that also, of course, looking at my careers was a key moment, because I started to work with a colleague and a friend, and he had sort of a university university course that were focusing on supply chain management. And I said, what if we convert this program you have into a buyer program? So one thing led to another. I started to train buyers at that program. And I have, of course, I knew by then roughly what a buyer should do and what procurement organization should do. But I prepared the courses one day and had the course with the students the next day. It was a quite intense period, but I ended up 10 years. Training buyers for 10 years and developing the path, the knowledge path that buyers should go on. So it was a very exciting period. and also, of course, build the foundation for what we're going to talk later on today about training buyers. At that point in time, it expanded, and I started to, train buyers in more places in Sweden. We ended up running the same kind of presentation over and over again. And the theory and the processes, it's one thing. The exciting part is how to do business and interact. So I wanted to, can I get rid of the part that where I talk about Kralik and talk about, operational buying and placing a PO, and talk about how you set up the best possible negotiation position. I mean, that's the interesting stuff. So I worked a little bit with recording myself, but it never ended up in anything good. And that back then it was, early 2000, at least not. I had the skill set to convert that into something that could be distributed to the buyer community. So I ended up coming back to the industry. I worked for Saab, which is now these days a defense company. Most of you might know Saab as a car company owned by.
Yeah, I had one myself.
Yeah, but it's quite a few years where they struggled, and now that Saab, the brand is only fighter aircraft and defense material. And after Saab, I moved on to Alstom, which is a French company. At that point in time, they had a huge portion of the industry within the energy industry, and that was acquired by General Electric. So I lived through, or how you should put it, the acquisition of GE. And at that point, I was a indirect sourcing manager. And as you know, indirect sourcing, when you come from an organization at Alstom, we were, just a few persons working with indirect in the Nordics. And GE is have quite a nice footprint here, especially within the medical industry. And indirect procurement, electricity, you buy electricity to the site. So I ended up, do more or less a phase out of myself when I converted all the contracting to the GE world. And then I had another decision to make. What should I do now? And now we're back in 2017, and I decided to start my own company again. So now that's what I do still. And a part of that journey, I came back to this idea of, how should I use the fact that I've trained buyers for 10 years? Is there a possibility to find a tool that can transfer that knowledge in a convenient way? And that's where I came up with a cloud-based tool called Thinkific. And on that that tool, I've now developed the site learnhowtosource.com. So that's where we are right now today.
Great. So obviously throughout that career path, those different companies, you experienced many different teaching methods and perhaps different media forms as well. We talked about the conventional classroom environment, there's the online environment, and there's all sorts of different ways of teaching people nowadays. So what do you think it's about the sort of conventional ways you've experienced so far that you find perhaps wanting or missing for the generation of today?
Yeah. So when you talk about learning and creating a learning environment, it's very much about culture. So how you see about learning, how you see about developing individuals in your organization, and how the individuals think about learning. And I think that's a culture. That's a kind of framework, the context where you provide learning. And the standard way of learning has been a lot, send people to a course and they come back. Best case, they come back energized. I've learned lots of new things they want to use in the organization, but it's all drained in the fact that they have a 2 or 3 days backlog that we need to work back, and it ends up in nothing. So worst case, you have sent someone to training and it ends up with just some knowledge that printed on a paper. So it's about how you use your knowledge and how you find a way to inject knowledge into the individuals. And I think that's where you have to find on-the-job training. And on-the-job training is I think that's the idea you have to go for. You have to find a way, which most successful in companies have. They have a built-in way of working, but sometimes you need to inject new knowledge. And I think this is where you have the e-learning, which I represent. The online courses where you can, let's say we have a situation we think we need to be a little bit more better within contract law. Okay, let's inject contract law via a couple of e-learnings, and then we use that knowledge and see how we can convert it into something better. So I think integrated learning and having learning as part of your day-to-day business, and especially on site, but especially these days now we are recording this, it's restrictions again in COVID-19. It might not be that when someone is listening, But working from home and finding a way to inject knowledge in an easy way, I think that's where e-learning has its platform, and I think that will be what's challenging. Maybe sending people to a 2-day course.
Yeah,
moving.
Yeah. I think it's a good point you make that. I think we've all experienced. You've been on courses, and you come away at the end with this nice big thick folder of information. You may have done some practical application at the time, taken lots of notes. As you say, you come back, and the office is certainly your emails are overflowing. Everybody's chasing for different things, and as you rightly say, you're distracted. You don't have the opportunity necessarily, depending on the company you work for, perhaps, in actually applying what you've learned, because you've got to catch up. And I guess that's a risk with anything. But the one thing about, I guess, e-learning is that you'll be able to go back and refresh yourself again, rather than pull out this great big thick binder of all these papers and notes and trying to find the bits and pieces that you're looking for. And so that way of learning can be quite difficult and restrictive, I guess that's what we're saying.
Yeah, and like always, I mean, it's like when we were in the military service and you wanted to I was a part of the artillery, so I wanted to do, where should I shoot? Where should my rockets end or my missiles end? And I guess that's you have to have different perspectives on the position. If you have 3 perspectives on the position you want to end up shooting at, then you're probably good at aiming. And I guess that's the same thing with knowledge. If you address a question, maybe with knowledge brought on from an online lecture, and maybe you discuss that. In Sweden, we drink a lot of coffee, so we meet along at the coffee machine. So you just discuss with a colleague, have you heard about this thing? I'm thinking of how maybe we can do something with it, and the discussion starts. And you have someone to interact with and enhance your learning. Or you have a manager that really pushes you to use the knowledge and have it as part of your business development daily. So I guess that all that put together is where you create a constant learning and improvement. So, and that's where I see, I mean, if you have an integrated learning, new knowledge can be the energy, the driver of the change you need to do. And we all know that change is maybe not good, but it's needed, because what the things you do today is not good enough tomorrow. So you have to enhance or improve your productivity.
Okay. So it's quite clear you're a strong advocate of e-learning. Yeah. So what is it about your e-learning program that is different from other programs on the web, and that really enables the student to integrate this into their day-to-day work?
That's a really good question, because as you say, there's lots of e-learning, and we've all attended that e-learning where someone send you an email saying, hey, you have to go to this e-learning, and you attend the e-learning, and you have maybe even 2 screens. So you have the e-learning open on one screen and working on the other screen, and trying to figure out the most convenient ways just to close the e-learning and have a tick in the box, so someone tells you have to do it. So it's about context, of course, at the e-learning. So you have to have the context of the e-learning, and my context is that it's a journey. So it's a step-by-step journey. So and starting point of that journey depends on where you are as an experience level and what position you have. So you can start from the very beginning as I want to be a buyer. How do I do that? So you start from the very beginning, and then there's a step-by-step approach where you take on course by course, and we lead you towards becoming, learning the operational, learning the sourcing, the tactical part, learning the procurement management, the legal, and then sustainability, to get you dressed as a buyer. And so it's a step-by-step approach. And by step, I mean one course, and our courses are quite short. So it's between 15 and some cases up to 1 hour. But in general, between 15 and 25 minutes, so you should be able to, take them as part of your daily work, or maybe not daily, but weekly. So let's say you have 1 course per week, and you spend some time working with that course. And I mean, you can do it any time of the day. It's there. You buy the course, and it's available for streaming on as long as you have a browser, it's available. And I guess that's not unique for the web. It's like a web shop, and that could be unique for some, but there are competitors out there that can provide that as well, for sure.
Yeah. So some of these courses, just so I interrupt you there, are straight videos. Is your courses interactive? So do you have the video? Then you have to do some questions and answer type things.
Yeah.
Do you go over material with the summaries? Because people have different ways of learning. It's the key thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Very, very good question. Thank you. It's a so every course has a learning objectives, and they are free. So you can search the courses and look at the learning objective. And if you find that learning objective interesting, you buy the course. And then we have sort of a 2 or 3, chapters that are conveying or providing the knowledge. And then we have a quiz. And after a quiz, you have a summary. And after the summary, you can download all the material. So all the material is available for you. And at the end, you get a certificate for completing the course. And that, of course, is an interesting part when you try as someone trying to build a CV. You can add a lot of courses to your CV.
Yeah.
And so that I think that's good. And there's always a suggested next step. So if you start, as a very start buyer, you get a first course. What is procurement? This good question. So you start learning about procurement, and at the end, you have the language and the knowledge about 40 courses later or 45 courses later, maybe 45 weeks. Who knows?
Yeah,
you have a very good knowledge about the procurement area.
Yeah, I guess procurement can, for some people, be a bit dry. We talked about contract law, not the most exciting of subjects to study. Is there certain things that you inject into your videos or courses that sort of act as memory markers in some ways? So particular things happen that you might find funny or particularly interesting that bring the subject matter perhaps a little bit more interesting into your life?
Yeah, that's a matter of opinion. I try to. I try to make them interesting, and also I'm not the only one, of course, who provide the courses. So I have experts providing courses in their area, but we try to make them interesting. But we try also to be, right on the point. It's real life knowledge. It's not, of course, some portions like Kralik's matrix. I usually say a day without Kralik is not a good day as a buyer. So that it's sort of a theory, but also Kralik was basing his ideas on real life experience. So we don't bring on board anything that's not. The whole package is about, if I would introduce a buyer to my department as a procurement manager, this is what I want them to know. This is the language I want them to be able to cope.
I think it's quite interesting. Some of the words we hear because. For me, stories bring things alive. When people can relate, we all remember the old days around the campfire or something like that, or your granddad's telling you a story of something that happened to him. And there's the stories that you remember rather than facts and graphs and charts and such.
Yes.
So when you mention real life things, so in there are real, not so much stories, but educational stories about how things go perhaps very well or perhaps not so well.
Yes, we try to use real life examples, or only real life examples. Of course, we don't talk about the context of that experience, but we talk about the conclusions and the what we learned, of course. And go back and forth between trying to put a theory in place, where it was processes you need to know as a buyer, and what happens if you don't meet those. And so it's that's really something we try to do. But I guess everybody need to try the course to see if they agree. But I think we got a good package out there for learning.
You mentioned about other people on the courses. So you collaborate with other experts in their specific fields or niches, and so they contribute to your work. Can you tell us a little bit about the people that come on the courses and what expertise they particularly have and bring to the programs?
Yeah. So, the more you learn, the more you understand that you don't know much. I guess that's the experience where you've been around a couple of organizations and you come to a new organization and see that there's a couple of areas that they need to know, but you also bring on new knowledge. And also there are different kind of experts out there. So I try to bring on experts to create that introduction or that course of procurement courses that I need. So right now we have a lawyer. His name is John Kielman. He's expert in contract law, and he's also in the Nordics. He's a famous guy who tells about what things you need to know about the law, and if things are not written in your contract and you do international business, at least based on the UN international sales law, then what happens, and what is remedies? If you're a new buyer, you probably heard the English impressions perhaps, but what is it really? What is liquidated damages? Especially if you're not native within English, that's really a strange word. I guess the kids in school don't learn about liquidated damages as well. So So these things are need to be picked up if you are going to be a good buyer. So Jon is a really good guy who helps out with that. And then we have the quality side of procurement, how to do a supplier audit, for instance. So we have experts coming on board and doing supplier audit. I will suggest how you should do supplier audits and references to different practices. And there's a guy called Hans Nilsson who has been doing that for quite a while. He's a professional auditor. And we have a consultant company here in Nordic called EFSO, and they also bring on a couple of courses. So they are at least origin from the Nordics, the main player when it comes to procurement consultancy and helping people, companies introducing category management, interim management, and so on. So they have a range of courses introducing to the basic concepts like category management, like spend analysis. And quite recently, we brought an American lady aboard. Her name is Dr. Aurora Dawn Benton. She has a very nice program about sustainability, how you go from, as a buyer, frustrated buyer, you want to change things to actually achieve result. The steps and stakeholder management, all the things you need to do to go from having a requirement put forward to you. We should have a sustainable supply chain. And what the heck is that? So the courses from Aurora will help you through that journey. So a lot of interesting experts, and I hope that I can add along the road more experts, and that's the idea, of course, with Learn How to Source, is that we have people out there, and with expert, it doesn't necessarily have to be like Aurora, a doctor. It has to be it's someone who is knowledgeable in this area. If people go to you and ask questions, you're probably an expert. That's my and then then we'll see if we could. I see myself a little bit like a headmaster of this school. So I try to create have the teachers or instructors or experts on board that make sense.
Right.
And so if you would come on board, Dave, and talk about one of your expertise area, you would own that area and develop it, and so you would be the expert of whatever you see yourself expert in. I don't know. You suggest, Dave, and I'll bring you on board.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
Just trying to get some context. This so how many people are actually contributing to this learning experience, and how many courses do you offer then?
Yeah, it's getting close to 50 courses. It's about, since all of them are quite short, it's about 15 to 20 hours, I would say. Very, since a course is all about converting knowledge, is quite digested and dense knowledge that's converted. And we are, I think we're 6 or 7 right now, experts that are contributing. But I'm, I have a list of potentials that I really would like to see on the platform. So who knows who's next? We'll see. Yeah, and maybe someone will pick up the phone and call me after they listen here.
Yeah, you never know. You never know.
No.
So I'm intrigued now. Obviously, the kind of people who go on your courses, are they covering all levels of competence? Are they mainly new buyers into their field, or are we talking people up to what we class perhaps as director level be also taking part in your courses?
Yeah, that's. If you talk about the roles, I try to organize procurement in 3 roles, simplifying it down to 3 roles. The operational, which is making sure that the right component or service end up at the right place at the right time. So that's the operative part, or transactional procurement. And then you have the tactical, which I talk about sourcing and sourcing development. And then the 3rd level is managerial, or where you have category management and how you convert procurement. Convert the corporate strategy into procurement strategy and make sure that the organization work to achieve the goals that's needed for your organization. So you have these 3 levels, and in these 3 levels, you can be on an introduction level as sort of experience, or you can be a basic or advanced, or you can be an expert. And I would say that since we built from the ground and upwards, and as started with the idea of an introduction program, we are strong on the intro and basic level, and then we are starting to get running on advanced level. So to answer your question, I would say most, if you have buyers that people want to be buyers, we are the place to go for you. If you are experienced, maybe the course regarding sustainability could be something for you and Dave, but the basic courses and the intro courses would be something you already know. So I would say where we are right now on intro level and basic level, people training to be a buyer or people that are, working as an operational buyer but want to, support their career and grow and maybe take on more advanced tasks like a category manager. Yeah. They should go and find courses here. If you're like you, Dave, maybe you can find highlights here and there, but you should cherry pick instead of going for a full program.
Sure. Yeah, as you know, I'm reading the recent book that's been published, Procurement with Purpose, and that's been really interesting because it's been written during COVID. So it's taken on lots of new ideas and concepts about sustainability. It mentions COP26, talks about obviously people and how they're treated in their different countries, different types of business. So that's something that may well be seen to be quite new to a number of procurement people. So the fact you have somebody that's coming in to talk about sustainability means you're riding the front of the curve, so to speak. So I find that as very positive.
We try to. I mean, I like the idea of. We are all different. We have large procurement organization. You have one man or one woman type of procurement organizations. But if you have a couple of people, what if I really like the idea that everybody have the same level of knowledge, so you grow and build the basics and upwards in terms of competence level. So I follow the same kind of path with creating and developing courses, and certainly sustainability. I mean, we are in a situation now with our environment and the ideas around us that the only thing we know is that we cannot do the same thing that we did yesterday. Yeah.
Absolutely right. So just thinking about going forwards, obviously, at the moment, tremendous disruption, obviously, both from a logistics perspective, material availability perspective. We've got lots of different challenges, shall we say, with people's availability to work because of COVID. And we've got these environmental disasters that appear to be developing more and more. So putting your crystal ball together now, how do you see procurement and supply chain developing and evolving in the next, say, 10 years or so? What do you think will be the new skill sets and competencies that will be needed for the future?
Yeah. Well, as you mentioned, there's been quite a dramatic few years here now. We're starting with Brexit and COVID. And I guess if nothing else, they are Brexit, of course, it's from my perspective, I really like, and I think the talk for every Sweden, everybody in Sweden, we feel a commonality with British people, and we're sad to say that they leave European Union. But on the other hand, I mean, that's democracy for you. That's people decided. And I think Brexit is one thing that happened, and if as isolated happening, I guess people would adapt and evolve, and nothing more will change. Maybe there's a higher cost here, and maybe you decide on a supplier a little bit different here. If we talk about COVID, knock on wood, let's hope that it ends up being the last things coming here now in winter, springtime 2022. But anyhow, I think we start living with that, and we start to learn more about that, and we could certainly adapt and continue. Maybe we start transferring some of our suppliers a bit, or supply a little bit closer to our factories, and maybe the risk of having a long supply chain with transports. And we see happenings in China, where it's just the factory of the world, that they shut down old cities and so on. Maybe we think that's too high risk, and we move things a bit closer. That could be happening. So all those things, I think we could manage with the current skill set. Sustainability is a completely different question. Here we need to learn new. We need to find a way to think differently. We have a saying in Sweden, and I'm trying to translate it to English, and maybe you can help me here, Dave, if it doesn't come out right. But if you want things to stay the same, all must change. And that's the fact. If we want to have the same kind of standard of living, if we want to stay live at the same place, and we want to commit to have products to the market that's really we're able to deliver, we need to do something completely different. And in terms of sustainability, we need to learn how to convert our supply chains. And so if there's a new I don't know if it's new, but it's a certainly more important skill set than ever. It's change management. It's the ability to take a supply chain from one situation where we are now to a new one, and we doing so. I mean, the whole organization need to be part of this change. So we need to have another framework when we select suppliers. We need to have another, when we do our selection criteria, we need to, reevaluate how we prioritize by those and how we value those selection criteria. We need to understand what is sustainable and not sustainable. We need to understand, and what if our supply base doesn't tag along on that journey? What if we cannot create the suppliers that meet the future requirement? We might even have to create new suppliers, create new supply chains for sure, but also creating new and one can see that as a threat, but I see it as a huge opportunity. I mean, there's lots of possibilities now to create business out there and change things and be the forerunner, be the one to lead the charge, and be the one who be able to put new kind of products out there that are in line with what we need to deliver further down the road. So to answer the question, change management, business development versus the new set of requirements. And you should know those new set of requirements.
Yeah, it's good. I think for sure we've got to learn to be extremely flexible, adaptable, and focus on our resilience for our supply chains. Perhaps it's a time for some business to reflect on whether they continue to outsource or they bring things back in source. They become more competent themselves. They build those things into their own businesses so they're not at the risk of failure outside. I think a lot of those questions are going to be asked now. You rightly say that those companies that we work with, not only are we acting in a responsible way, but are they acting in a responsible way? So I think we certainly got, as you say, mentioned about auditing, but it's driving the mindsets of our supply chains, both upward and downward. I think it's going to be quite important. So they're all contributing the right way to the environment and to people and sustainability, etc. So, for me, for sure, there's quite a few things that need to develop, and people need to think in a different way for out there as well.
Yeah, and these things doesn't happen from one night to another, and usually it's very hard to do this. You can do something stepwise, and you should certainly do. You should try to remove the I don't know, maybe replace plastic with wood in your cantina. I don't know, but these are all small things. The ones that really influence your capability to compete is when you take on a couple of years, have a mindset looking forward a couple of years ahead and trying to, where do we want to be, and put aggressive targets. And then, okay, so what we need to achieve that, and then you put those targets in the heads of your suppliers and have them tag along on the journey. And if they don't, you tell them that, sorry, we have a good ride next time. Maybe you should listen to us, and then you try and find a new source that really meet your target. So it's now we should look at our key suppliers and ask them for support and tag along in this journey. And 3 years ahead from now, you should be well ahead of 2030. you should be able to have a new supplier chain in place.
Yeah, and obviously the carbon footprint should have changed quite dramatically. The methods of moving materials around would have no doubt changed. I know there's a lot of investment happening with various big companies as well to reduce their demands, should we say, on fossil fuels, as an example.
Yeah, and also the material you use. Maybe you should go from virgin material to recycled material.
Definitely, absolutely, for sure.
So,
yeah.
So that's
okay. So just thinking before we finish, looking at the time we have available, how do people find out about what you have to offer? What are the websites, the social media accounts, etc., that people could look into to find out more about your work and courses?
Yeah, so if you Google learnhowtosource.com or just learn how to source, you'll find both me and the website and the courses, and also available at LinkedIn under Fredrik Axelsson, but also Learn How to Source is available on LinkedIn. So don't hesitate to pick up the phone or schedule a meeting if you're interested. I mean, both from if you want to attend some courses, go there and try them if you want to be a procurement expert, or if you're if you think that if you provide procurement courses to your market today, and you think maybe it's a good idea to integrate those courses and have a blended learning, give me a call and we will see how we do that.
Yeah. Okay, so let's look at the last quick question. It's a little bit about education, and as education moves more online, obviously your territory now, do you see there being different learning methods and environments? Whether you think that they'll change for future students and for academics? How do you think things may evolve on the e-learning platforms?
I mean, the question is, what is the new normal? What will be the new normal? And we've seen a drive to becoming more online. And my oldest daughter, she's at the university right now. They mix online classes with workshops at the school, and who knows where we'll end up. I will certainly be a more blended learning. I really like the idea of being able to work wherever you want and be close. I mean, you and me, we are all both buyers, been around. We've traveled the world, and we spent 3 days traveling each week, maybe several years at a time. So I really like to see that we are able to be more flexible from a geographical point of view. But on the other side, I think it's hard to replace the human interaction, to have people in a room talking and people sitting down. So I'm not an expert in terms of forecasting the future and trying to find the most optimum methods of learning. There are better, probably a lot more better people than me to I guess the word is guessing in that area. But I foresee that it's we will see more of a mixed learning. We're more online, but also more blended. So we will, and I think we'll never. Well, who knows what virtual reality will give us? But I think we will not give up the fact that we need to meet and talk and sit down and discuss. And I think the value that comes out of that is enormous. I like the idea of a book circle where you read a book on your own or take an e-learning on your own, and then you sit down and talk about the book or the e-learning, and you get so much more out of the book or the e-learning.
Yeah. I like you mentioned virtual reality, because that's something I think is going to come more to the fore. We'll be putting on some kind of device, and then you'll suddenly be transported into perhaps a virtual classroom, a virtual factory, an environment that's different. I can almost envisage that, okay, guys, we're going to go and do a tour of this factory now. So you have a real factory that's created online, and you walk through all the different procedures and processes. You'll be educated, say, this is good practice, this is bad practice. You can see it, even though you're still perhaps sat or walking around your room at home. I can see you being walked around. Let's say you're in a forging shop. People want to learn how to buy forgings. What's the process? Yeah. And so walking around a virtual forging company, seeing how things work and what's good and what's bad about they do, what the environmental risks, the health and safety hazards, all those things I think can be done from the comfort of your own office. And I think that's where there's going to be a huge opportunity for development and growth.
For sure. And it's really exciting. It's sad for the future buyers. Maybe they're not allowed to travel the world like we did.
Well, it depends how you look at it. Perhaps you're right. Physically, they don't have to. No. But I don't know about you, sitting in airports for hours, on planes for hours, going to and from hotels by taxis, isn't that glamorous?
No, when you put it like that.
I don't miss that so much at the moment.
I'm sad to say that you're right.
But I agree. Actually experiencing the environment in which things happen and meeting the people for real is really nice. But there's quite a few negatives from that as well. But being able to transport yourself within seconds into a virtual environment when, blimey, how things are going to develop. You'll probably be able to smell what it smells like in these places and feel things that perhaps we can't do at the moment. I can see all those things beginning to happen more and more. You're probably wearing a complete suit, so you'll feel temperature changes and who knows what might happen.
Who knows what? Yeah, man, you have a couple of interesting things today. Like if you're a service engineer and you have put on the special glasses and you have the glasses with cameras, then they look at what you're doing, and then if you have a service procedure you want to follow, have a step-by-step approach, and instructions come up as augmented reality and point out tie this screw to
Exactly.
60 Newton meters, and then you push the next step, and so you have this kind of possibilities to learn and also to support your daily work.
Exactly.
Also in augmented reality. So only that step is a huge step. So who knows what's next?
Well, exactly. And have you equate that, think of the guys who are astronauts, they can't go to space to practice this, but they can certainly go underwater. Isn't this the same thing? We're talking this virtual reality is the water. So yeah, I think some great exciting things to sort of come up and develop in the next 10 to 20 years. And the way things are moving, the pace of change is quite incredible. So that's brilliant. Well, I think that's been quite exciting discussion there for Fredrik. Thank you for that information. I'm sure if we get some feedback from our listeners, if they want to get us to touch base on certain subjects, perhaps you and I could get together and talk about particular aspects of procurement that people might find exciting. If you're up for that,
really looking forward to that. Yeah.
Brilliant. That's brilliant. Well, you have a lovely day. It's a little bit wet here in the UK, and I think you got snow, haven't you, in Sweden?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I guess I'm supposed to say I love it because but it's hard to do.
See it too often. Okay, mate. Well, have a great weekend and take care of yourself.
Thank you. Take care. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Bye.
So there's another Real Life Buyer podcast. I do hope you enjoyed it and it's given you some ideas and inspiration for greater action and achievement. If you are a purchasing or a supply chain professional, business owner or director, come and join my Facebook group, the Purchasing and Supply Chain Community Hub, a safe place to engage with like-minded, friendly people. See you soon. Bye.